Today I want to talk about the difference between two very different carotid ultrasounds, scan of the neck, because people get this confused as to the difference between a blood flow scan and a CIMT. Stay tuned. Welcome. For those new to my channel, my name is Simon. You will find all kinds of topics that are going to get discussed on my channel related to health, with a major emphasis on heart attack and stroke prevention. If you've seen some of my earlier videos, you'll know that I'm a big proponent of getting what's called a CIMT scan done. It stands for Carotid Intima Media Thickness Scan. It's a 10-minute ultrasound of the neck that, among other things, looks for plaque in your arteries. And you can see all of my CIMT scan reports in PDF file in the description box to this video, because I am regressing plaque at the age of 58. And if that's of interest, go click on the scans and you can see even a plaque regression protocol that I put in the description box. Now, one of the things that came up in the comments on an earlier video, and I've seen this happen many times over, sometimes I get messages from people and they say, oh, I've had a carotid ultrasound and my arteries were clear, no plaque. And I'm thinking, that doesn't even make sense. You see, a CIMT doesn't give you a finding of no plaque. They give you a bunch of numbers. So anytime I hear someone say it's no plaque, I suspect that what they actually got was what's called a Doppler blood flow scan. And the company in the United States that's very big on these is LifeLine screening. And this is not a knock on LifeLine screening, by the way. I've done the scan. In fact, we'll put my results on the screen in a second. I'm just making the point that when LifeLine screening, or indeed many hospitals, sometimes radiology centers, do these ultrasounds of the neck, you might think it's a CIMT scan, but it isn't. It's a blood flow scan. So let's make the point here by putting up my LifeLine screening results from May of 2024, so you can see the difference between the results of a Doppler blood flow scan like LifeLine and the results of a CIMT. So I had the LifeLine screening diagnostics done on May 17th, 2024, and it's a multi-part kind of a screening. It's not just a carotid ultrasound, and those of you that have done it will know this. But if you just go through my report at the top, you can see that they found no aneurysm in my abdominal area. That's one of the things that they check, which of course is different to an ultrasound of the neck. You can see moving down that they found no atrial fibrillation, but they did find bradycardia, a heart rate less than 50, and they marked it as follow-up. And that wasn't news to me because I've had low heart rate my entire adult life. It's genetic. Super fit people have heart rates in the 40s. Sometimes doctors say to me, are you an athlete? And I'm like, no, it runs in the family. So that wasn't a surprise to me that they found that I had a low heart rate in the 40s, as my resting heart rate has been that way for decades. If you go further down the report, you can see, and this is the part where people get confused with a CIMT, because it talks about carotid artery disease. And you can see on the left-hand side of my neck, they reported that I was normal with a PSV of 11 to 125. That stands for peak systolic volume. That means they're looking at blood flow. Is the blood flowing through that carotid artery freely and clearly, yes or no? And they said in my case, it was normal. When you read the report, it says they found no evidence of plaque buildup. And then they looked at the right side of my neck and they got the exact same result. And this is why people get confused. LifeLine screening and these Doppler blood flow scans, they're not looking at the minutia that a CIMT technician will look at. It's kind of like looking for plaque from 30,000 feet in the sky saying, oh, the river seems to be flowing well, can't see any plaque from all the way up here. They don't have the technology that a CIMT technician has. So when they write no evidence of plaque buildup, I'm going to show you that that's not reassuring, okay? It just means that my blood is flowing freely, okay? And then going further down the LifeLine report, they also look at your blood pressure, the difference between the blood pressure in your ankles and your upper body, and I was normal on that. So these screenings from LifeLine, it's a multi-part kind of a screening. So I'm not saying that they're bad screenings, I'm just saying that the neck screening, it's just blood flow. And forget about what they say about plaque buildup. You gotta go get a CIMT, because you can have plaque that they miss that isn't impeding blood flow, But if that plaque that they miss, because it's not blocking the artery, ruptures, and then a blood clot rushes to the scene of the crime, that's how you have your stroke and your heart attack. And that's why a CIMT is far, far superior for assessing your stroke risk and indirectly your heart attack risk. So that scan I did on May 17th, 2024. Just 2 days earlier, in other words, the same week, I got a CIMT done. Now, back then, that was not with CARDIORISK, my preferred provider today. This was a CIMT I did in my doctor's office with a company called HEARTSMART, okay? But it was done the same week as the LifeLine screening scan. And you can see from that CIMT that at the age of 56, I had the arteries of a 64-year-old in terms of intima media thickness. And scrolling on through the report, you can see that they found that I had plaque in both bulb areas on both sides of my neck. The bulb is kind of where the arteries blitz into two different arteries, and that's a very common place where plaque can build up. So you can see that the same week that LifeLine screening was saying no evidence of plaque, just 2 days earlier under a CIMT, they found plaque in the bulb in the right hand and the left hand side of my neck. The point is this: you cannot take a clear plaque reading on a Doppler blood flow scan and think that's good enough. It really isn't, because like I just said earlier, the thing about plaque is it doesn't have to get to the point where it's so bad that it's blocking the artery and impeding blood flow. The danger with plaque is that a lesion that isn't impeding blood flow ruptures. Okay? Because it's a vulnerable lesion, it's not calcified. This is why soft plaque is so much more dangerous than calcified plaque. A soft lesion that isn't impeding blood flow ruptures, spews all of its foul stuff into the artery, the body thinks you're bleeding to death, rushes to the scene of the crime to form a blood clot, bingo, there's your heart attack or your stroke. That's why you got to get a CIMT. Now, like I said, I was using HEARTSMART back in 2024. A year later, June of 2025, I switched to CARDIORISK because I wanted a provider that was independent from my doctor's office. CARDIORISK are nationwide. They have fantastic technology. If you use them, you're going to get the same technician every time, so you're going to get consistency in terms of one set of results to another. Because sometimes people criticize CIMTs. They say, oh, well, they're operator dependent. They can be subject to operator error. I understand all that. But the point is this: if you've got a quality company and you're using the same technician every time, those results are going to be standardized to you. So you can see all of my CIMT reports that I've had done the last couple of years in the description box to this video, and you can see the movements, how I'm tracking over time the plaque in my neck arteries, which is a direct assessment of my stroke risk and an indirect assessment of my heart attack risk, because when you've got atherosclerosis in one area, you've typically got it in another area. If you've got it in your carotids, you've got it in your coronaries. So folks, please don't get these scans mixed up. It's very common for people to get them mixed up. If you ever see the words PSV on your ultrasound report, PSV, peak systolic volume, that means you got a blood flow scan. You did not get a CIMT. So if you like this video, you like the content, please go to cardiorisk.com. I don't get paid to say this. Sign up for a scan, get your next scan, look at the results. I've got an earlier video where I walk through how to interpret a CARDIORISK CIMT report. It's probably the most comprehensive video on social media. So you got to know your risk, folks. Take a loved one with you. This is the #1 killer in the world, heart attacks and strokes. You see the disease, you can intervene, potentially even save your own life. I will catch you next time.